Preparation. So much of writing is not putting words on the page. It's thinking and wondering and hydrating in cats, and being in Morocco or in New York or in Memphis or D.C. or wherever, and walking and eating and shitting and showering and painting one's nails and sitting on rooftops and posing on rooftops and painting rooftops and journaling and looking for Amlou at the margin and taking out the trash and throwing away the dead flowers and the greens that have gone bad because they're too much for one person, and washing one's hands and clothes, and recharging one's phone and looking up a word on Google and liking a pic and reading just one more article, one more post, one more tweet, clicking on one more affiliated link, one more, and then it's nightfall, and you've not put a single word on the page. Still, in the living, the words are lining themselves up. I want to write about Christa McAuliffe. I am, in fact, already writing about Christa McAuliffe, but when I say I want to write about Christa McAuliffe, I mean I want to find a new way to write, and that writing about Christa McAuliffe necessarily involves many other things, because to write about anyone is to write about many other things. This book is a story of stories, and the thing about stories is there are always more to tell. Christa McAuliffe knew this. She had a keen awareness of the stories history left out. Shortly after she was announced as the teacher in space in July 1985, she told an interviewer, "When I was teaching American history, I was always concerned that the military, political, and economic history was in the textbooks, but we never found out what happened to the ordinary person, because social history is not there." How to write the process of living as it is lived. History often doesn't. Amid the great torrents of an era, one's own memories are often treated as superfluous foams, tides, and noise that the era wipes out or carelessly throws aside, silencing them in voices and in words as if they never existed, the novelist Jan Lianke observed in March of 2020, in a lecture to his creative writing class after they, along with so many teachers and students around the world, moved their classroom online due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Alas, with the passing of an era, everything fades into oblivion. Flesh and blood, body and soul are gone. All is well, and the little fulcrum of truth that could lift the world is lost. Christa knew this too. She recalled how once, in the women's history course she created at Concord High, a student raised his hand and said he'd always wondered what women were doing in the era they were studying, but the history books never covered that. In this little piece, she tells the interviewer, this piece of what an ordinary person was doing, what a teenager was doing back in the 1920s, what women were doing during the Revolutionary War, I feel is an important part of history, not only as a woman but as a person, an ordinary person who feels I live history every day. The superfluous foams, tides, and little pieces and noise, they're essential. The story and its truth cannot exist without them. This is why, in her classes, Mrs. McAuliffe emphasized the importance of journals, assigning her students to write their own and to read those of others. To understand history, she felt you had to be there, in the hearts and heads of those who actually had been there. The ordinary people, like you and me and her, living their lives in history as it breaks and sweeps and flows around us. In the essay for her NASA application, she responded to the question of, why do you want to be the first U.S. private citizen in space, by recounting childhood memories of earlier space exploration. In school, my classes would gather around the TV and try to follow the rocket, as it seemed to jump all over the screen. She'd been inspired by President John F. Kennedy's challenge to Americans to put a man on the moon by the end of the 1960s. She remembered the relief she experienced as a child on a cloudy, rainy night, driving through Pennsylvania and hearing the news that the astronauts had landed safely. Of the first space orbital mission, she tells an interviewer, I can remember sitting there and watching it. She's on a local talk show out of her hometown, and it's a few weeks before she's selected as the teacher in space. On set, she appears prim, seated slightly forward in the chair, hands together on her lap, legs crossed at the ankle. Her curly brown hair surrounds a face with limited makeup, maybe a little eyeshadow and a light lipstick. She's wearing what looks like an apple green and white plaid dress with wide shoulders, paired with brownish tights and black low-heeled pumps. Out of the camera's frame, she gestures with her hands as she speaks. Her excitement is evident. When she laughs, she ducks her head and the corners of her eyes crinkle up as a smile floods her whole face. I can remember sitting there and watching it, she says, and then watching it again at school, and it was so exciting. I mean, this was real, you know? It was such an impact on history that spaceflight was actually going to continue, and we would be herded into the cafeteria when these things were on or herded into the gymnasium, and I got caught up in that excitement. Asked why NASA selected her out of 11,000 applicants, she tells a reporter from the Concord Monitor, her hometown paper, that she's not really sure. I feel I'm a good communicator. I love people. I enjoy my job. I feel that I'm real enthusiastic about teaching, but all 10 of the finalists were like that, and I'm really not sure what extra edge I had over somebody else. Then she speculates. Maybe they felt I was somebody everybody could identify with. Powder her nose and her cheeks, a producer tells an assistant at a TV interview. She's shining. You'll never get that shine off her, says Krista's backup teacher, Barbara Morgan. She's too excited. Her essay for the NASA application ends with this line. I watched the space age being born, and I would like to participate.